internet used to treat Blake Lively like she was untouchable. Perfect marriage. Perfect image. Perfect Hollywood life. But now, people are looking at her very differently. Because after months of headlines, lawsuits, emotional statements, internet warfare, and non-stop PR battles involving Justin Baldoni, the story that was supposed to strengthen Blake Lively's image may have done the exact opposite. And honestly, that's what makes this entire situation so fascinating. Not just the lawsuit itself, but the collapse of perception. Because for years, Blake and Ryan Reynolds built one of the strongest celebrity brands in Hollywood. Funny, charming, relatable, untouchable. They weren't just actors anymore. They became a billion-dollar public image machine people genuinely liked. Then suddenly, everything changed. The second news settlement details started spreading online, social media exploded again. But this time the tone felt different. People weren't just angry anymore. They sounded exhausted. Exhausted by celebrity PR. Exhausted by carefully crafted narratives. Exhausted by trying to figure out what was actually true. And once people began reading the legal details more carefully, the internet immediately started questioning whether Blake's side was celebrating something that legally didn't look like a clear victory at all. Because yes, a settlement notice officially appeared involving Blake Lively and the Wayfarer parties. And yes, parts of the case were resolved. But then critics noticed something important buried underneath all the headlines. Most of Blake's claims had already been dismissed before any trial ever happened. That detail changed everything online. Especially because Blake's public messaging throughout this entire battle framed the case as something much larger than a normal celebrity dispute. Her team repeatedly spoke about retaliation, harassment, smear campaigns, and standing up for women facing abuse of power. To supporters, she looked brave. To critics, it started looking strategic. And that divide only became more intense after the settlement. Because while Blake's attorneys described the outcome like some huge moral victory, critics immediately pushed back online saying, "Wait, didn't the court already throw out most of the claims?" Suddenly social media became flooded with legal commentary, timeline breakdowns, and people dissecting every statement being released publicly. The situation got even messier when people realized Blake reportedly still wanted to keep the attorney fees motion alive. And immediately the internet began questioning the "this was never about money" narrative all over again. Because audiences today remember everything. Old interviews, Instagram captions, court filings, press statements. Nothing disappears anymore. And once people feel like a celebrity's story keeps changing depending on the headline, trust disappears fast. That's exactly what happened here. For months, this case transformed into a non-stop online war. Supporters of Blake Lively viewed her as someone fighting against powerful retaliation tactics. Critics believed her team was using public sympathy and media influence to control the narrative before a courtroom ever could. Then came the turning point. The dismissals? Once multiple claims were thrown out, including the sexual harassment allegations, public opinion became dramatically more divided. Because legally, that shifted the conversation overnight. Before that moment, supporters could still say, "Wait for trial." But after the dismissals, critics started arguing that the public narrative no longer matched the legal reality unfolding behind the scenes. And that's when the internet became ruthless. Every public appearance suddenly got analyzed under a microscope. Every Instagram post became evidence for somebody's argument. Every statement from attorneys triggered another wave of outrage online. Then Blake appeared at the Met Gala shortly after the settlement news. And the backlash exploded again. To some people, it looked completely normal. Celebrities attend events. Life moves on. But to critics, the optics looked terrible. Because throughout the legal battle, Blake's messaging often emphasized emotional stress, advocacy, and larger social importance. So seeing her immediately step onto one of the wealthiest celebrity red carpets in the world surrounded by luxury, cameras, and designer fashion rubbed many people the wrong way. Online reactions turned brutal. People started accusing celebrities of treating serious allegations like temporary PR campaigns that disappear the second the cameras come back on. And honestly, that criticism hit harder because public trust in celebrity culture is already collapsing. Years ago, audiences accepted polished interviews and magazine narratives at face value. Not anymore. Now people read court documents themselves. They compare timelines. They analyze interviews frame by frame. They study legal rulings like detectives. And in this case, the more people researched, the more divided they became. Then came another major problem for Blake's image: the wording. Statements from her legal team describing the settlement as a resounding victory immediately triggered backlash because critics argued the language sounded misleading compared to what legally happened. At the same time, Justin Baldoni's attorney responded publicly with a completely different tone. Cold. Direct. Unemotional. Instead of sounding celebratory, Baldoni's side focused heavily on the dismissed claims and argued the settlement happened because Blake's team knew continuing toward trial carried major risks. And just like that, the internet split into two completely different realities. One side believed Blake successfully exposed unfair treatment and protected her right to speak publicly. The other side believed the lawsuit became a massive PR strategy that collapsed once legal scrutiny intensified. That's why this story became so much bigger than Blake Lively versus Justin Baldoni. It turned into a debate about celebrity power itself. Because critics started asking uncomfortable questions. How much influence do wealthy celebrities really have over media narratives? How much public opinion gets shaped by PR teams before facts fully emerge? And how easily can social media weaponize outrage before anyone knows the truth? Those questions became impossible to ignore during this saga. Especially once online creators and commentators began describing how intense the situation became behind the scenes. Some claimed they felt intimidated simply for discussing the case publicly. Others described being dragged into conspiracy theories or targeted online by angry supporters from both sides. At that point, the situation stopped feeling like entertainment. It started feeling toxic. And after nearly a year and a half of non-stop headlines, even people who strongly criticized Blake began sounding emotionally drained talking about it. That might be the strangest part of this entire story. Nobody really feels satisfied. Supporters feel frustrated because they believe Blake was unfairly attacked online. Critics feel frustrated because they believe the public was manipulated emotionally through selective narratives and PR spin. And neutral audiences? Most of them just sound tired. Tired of celebrity warfare. Tired of outrage cycles. Tired of trying to separate truth from performance. Because this case became unbelievably performative at times. The dramatic statements. The leaks. The anonymous sources. The carefully timed appearances. The emotional Instagram messaging. Eventually people stopped feeling like they were watching reality, and started feeling like they were watching two competing Hollywood campaigns fighting for control of the final headline. And maybe that's the real reason this situation damaged Blake Lively's image so deeply. Not because every person suddenly hates her. She still has fans. She still has industry support. She's still enormously famous. But the untouchable image cracked. For years, Blake Lively represented the polished modern celebrity fantasy. Beautiful family. Funny husband. Effortless charm. Perfect branding. Now people see something more complicated. More strategic. More corporate. More calculated. Fair or unfair, once audiences start questioning authenticity, it becomes very difficult to rebuild that emotional trust completely. Meanwhile, Justin Baldoni's public image changed too. Some people now see him as someone unfairly dragged through a brutal celebrity media storm. Others still remain skeptical and believe settlements never reveal the full story. And honestly, that uncertainty is probably what keeps the internet obsessed. Because settlements rarely give audiences the ending they want. There's no dramatic courtroom confession. No clear movie-style resolution. Just competing narratives, exhausted lawyers, frustrated fans, and millions of people trying to decide which version of reality sounds more believable. That's why even now, after settlements and dismissals, this story still feels unfinished emotionally. The arguments continue. The debates continue. The suspicion continues. And somewhere inside all that noise is the biggest lesson Hollywood keeps teaching over and over again. Fame can protect an image for years. But once public trust starts cracking, even the most carefully managed celebrity brand can suddenly look fragile. And now the entire internet is waiting to see whether Blake Lively can recover the golden image she once had, or whether this controversy permanently changed how audiences see her forever.